Over the next 5 years, radical changes will take place in the economy that will impact the world forever. These changes are the AI revolution, economic turmoil, illegal immigration displacing American workers. Average American will take a bad deal because of these changes. You don't have to take a bad deal. You just have to make the right decision today. Get some skills or take the Deal 2024 event. Will take place in Atlanta, Georgia, on April 27, 2024. This event will only seat 40 people who are serious about learning how to prepare themselves for the upcoming changes in our society. You now have to make a decision. Take whatever deal they offer you, or go to GetSomeSkills2024.com. Buy a ticket and attend Get Some Skills, or take the Deal 2024.
How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave, the founder of the highest paid part-time job in the world options trading academy. And what we're going to talk about today is critical trading theory and the path to success. And the reason why I did this particular want to do this particular class is because I wanted to really get people to kind of understand what are some of the things that are holding them back from getting the success that they desire as a trader. And then what are some of the things that they can kind of work on to put themselves in a position to become a lot more successful. One of the biggest challenges that a lot of people have is that they have a particular way of thinking and seeing the world, and they take that into the market, and the way in which they think and kind of see the world will not allow them to become successful in this market. It will only allow them to become more distracted. And so if you're easily distracted just on your day-to-day, and then you come into the market, you're going to still continue to be easily distracted. You taking a course, you study and you learn the technical analysis, it won't overcome the fact that you're an easily distracted person. And then therefore you come into the market and you allow things in the market to distract you from what's going to put you in the best position to be successful. And one of the things that I learned about the market is that I have to focus on what is going to allow me to get the success that I desire and really cut everything else out. And that's why I don't get caught into a lot of the narratives, because I know they're not going to lead me to getting the result that I desire. So I desire a result, and those narratives around everything else, I don't believe they're going to lead me to the result. Some people, the distraction is the reason why they're here, so they continue to get distracted. I'm not on a holy grail mission to try to beat the hedge funds. I'm not on a mission that is based on a political party or anything of that nature. I'm here to get a financial result. That's why I go into the actual financial markets, to get a financial result. It's really not anything bigger than that, right? And so I don't get distracted with a lot of the other things because I'm not here on those particular type of missions. So what I want to do in this video is to try to put you in a position to where you can hopefully take some of this and understand what are some of the things that I could be missing in the way in which I analyze stuff. Because a lot of people ask me, David, how do you analyze companies? How did it take you a certain amount of time to learn how to read balance sheets? It's not about that. It's about the way I look at the overall situation and me determining what is really important in the situation. What do I need to focus on? And what is just, I would call ancillary data that's really not that important. And they do this kind of testing in certain fields where they give you a large amount of information and you're supposed to be trying to get a specific result, and they ask you what information is pertinent to getting that result. And then based on what you tell them is how to determine whether or not you're going to be a good fit for a certain position, because they want to really understand how your brain actually works, right? And what's interesting is that we got a lot of people on this social media. Now, it is what it is. And they talk about logic, which is false, because if you're a buyer, you're emotional. So anything you've ever bought, it was because of an emotional decision. And if you look at how the world looks, right, and we're looking at a world that is dominated by men. The world doesn't look the way it looks because men are more logical than women, right? The world we currently have today is not because men are so logical and women are so emotional, but we got a world that is essentially, we've been in eternal warfare in the majority of the world since the beginning of the world. So this has very little to do with logic. It has very much to do with emotion and then people's ability to persuade and influence other people to buy into their emotional narrative for whatever reason. So we're going to kind of go through that. We're going to make this relatively short. We're not going to do as much of me asking you the question, because really this is going to be like a resource that you can take and utilize in your day-to-day. State of Texas created a social media law that will punish social media sites for removing posts based on their political viewpoints. This is a real thing that's going on right now today, right? If you're looking at this with a critical mind, using critical analysis, and you hear about the state of Texas create a social media law that is going to punish social media sites for removing posts based on political viewpoints, what should your response be? One, should it be MAGA? Should it be this emotional response to this particular social media law? Two, it's political theater because it's not enforceable. Three, the state of Texas is attempting to violate the First Amendment. Four, social media sites should not operate in Texas, which would destroy ad dollars and not allow businesses to reach Texas consumers. Or five, state of Texas is trying to protect the freedom of speech of conservatives. The average person, their response to it would either be one or to be five, right? In my opinion, the correct response is going to be response number two. It's political theater because it's not enforceable. There's no way the state of Texas can enforce that a social media site like YouTube can remove somebody's post, and they from the state of Texas can enforce it. How is it enforceable? So any law that's not enforceable is essentially null and void anyway, because it's not enforceable, because a law is only as good as it gets enforced. A law on the books that's not enforced doesn't mean anything, right? So this is a part of the critical thinking ability. If it can't be enforced, it doesn't matter what law they passed, because they don't have the ability to enforce it. So how does the state of Texas have the ability to enforce a social media law in which these social media entities operate in all 50 plus states inside the United States? They don't just operate inside Texas, right? So from a critical thinking ability, it's going to be two. Now, with me putting on my business mind, I'm thinking number four, because if I'm a social media site and they actually try to go through with this, I tell them, cool, I just won't operate in the state of Texas. And so therefore, we'll use our computer engineers. We will pull our exposure away from the state of Texas. What that do is that will impact Texas businesses negatively, because therefore they can't use our social media platform to advertise to their consumers in the state of Texas. I wouldn't even fight them on it. I would just remove my footprint out of the state of Texas and then let them deal with those businesses that no longer use my social media platform to advertise. And that can be very detrimental if we're looking at something like AdWords or something like Facebook ads that have massive exposure, because you can do a lot of geo-targeting ads on Facebook where you can target just people not only on the state, but you also target them on a localized level. And you also have like very localized geo-targeted ads on Facebook. You can target the people on Facebook just based on zip code, right? So you got to understand is that when you're thinking from a critical thinking standpoint, this other stuff doesn't even resonate with you, because you understand immediately, because of how this thing is framed out, that number two to me is going to be the most appropriate answer. All right, let's go to the next one. Person wants to argue over why Black people should no longer receive affirmative action policy. What is going to be your response? Defend why Black people should receive affirmative action policy is number one. Two, agree that affirmative action is outdated and we should start, my bad with the typo, with Anglo women who are the largest recipient of affirmative action policy. Three, try to educate the person on why they are wrong. So my bad for the other typo. From a critical thinking standpoint, the most appropriate response is number two, right? Because a person is presenting this to you because it's going to be polarizing, it's going to be provocative, and they're looking to get an emotional response out of you. From a critical thinking standpoint, what you do is you agree with the person, but you go to what the actual point is. Because in reality, Anglo women are the largest recipients of affirmative action policy inside the United States. So if anybody's going to argue over whether or not we should have affirmative action policy, it should be the people that get the largest benefit from affirmative action policy. As a black man, I get the least amount of benefit from affirmative action policy. So therefore, I would never put myself in a position where I needed to argue that to get compensation, right? So you got to understand from a critical thinking standpoint, when somebody's just trying to make a provocative statement, they're trying to incite you, or they're trying to use you to support a point, right, that doesn't even benefit you outside of the fact that, well, maybe they'll let me come back on their media platform if I continue to argue points that they say I need to argue. We see this with a lot of black celebrities. They're only allowed on platforms because they say what the platform wants them to say. Other than that, they never get put back on the platform. So you'll end up with a black man that's arguing for or against affirmative action policy, even though he's going to be he gets the least amount of benefit from affirmative action policy because it goes to white women first, because they're the largest group of people that are considered protected class inside the United States. So you got to really understand from a critical thinking ability, what other parts of this are not even relevant to the overall issue. Okay, let's go into the next one. Police officer Michael T. Slager, so this happened a few years ago in Charleston, shoots a fleeing suspect in the back. What is the most important fact of the ones that are listed? Fact 1, suspect was fleeing. Fact 2, suspect fought the officer before fleeing. Fact 3, a video of the event contradicts the incident report of the event submitted by the officer. Fact 4, police have a difficult job. The most important fact of the ones that are listed is fact number 3, that this situation took place. The officer went down to the station. They created an incident report of what took place on the scene. Then when the video came out, the video didn't match the incident report. It wasn't he shot the man because he was black. It wasn't he shot the man in his back. It wasn't the suspect should not have fled. It wasn't the suspect should not have fought the officer. It's not the police have a difficult job. The most important fact of the ones listed is that the police officer submitted an incident report that is not in line with the video. And there's a reason why to this day you can't find an incident report. But that's the reason why when the video came out, he immediately got fired. Right? And the reason why they don't focus on that is because they don't want you to realize that these people lie on incident reports. So what we do in the media is we present every story except that the incident report was falsified. It got to be the fact that he shot the man because he was black. It got to be that we're going to look through his old cases and we're going to overturn them to see everything that creates a yay or nay or yes or no controversy that allows them to create more media. It allows people to be contrarian. So I can be a contrarian and say, well, you know what? He should have shot the man because he fled. Now it makes people get emotionally charged up. Then I could come out and say, well, it's white supremacy. That's the reason why he shot him. And people get emotionally charged up. They can be for or be against it. What can't be disputed, what cannot be contradicted, because it's irrefutable, because it's documented, is that we had an incident take place. The officer went to the station. He created an incident report documented as to the events of the incident. And then when the video came out, it contradicted his incident report. So either the video was a lie or the incident report is a lie. They both can't be telling the truth. So because we can't contradict that, we can't create media around it, we can't polarize people with it, we can't create a yay or a nay, we talk about everything else around it. But when you learn how to think critically, we go to what is the actual fact of this situation that cannot be disputed. It's the incident report. And that's all I want to see is the incident report. I've been looking for that incident report for years, still can't find it. I can find an incident report of every other officer that showed up to the scene. I cannot find Slager's incident report. I might have to do a Freedom of Information Act because they don't want you to know that that man did that. Even though we know he did it, but we don't want to actually see the document because I want to see what did he tell those people happened on that scene. Because without the video, that would have held up. And that's what I want people to understand. And then once we start to unravel that ball of wax, we now get to a larger context. That's why they don't want you to look at that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Breonna Taylor was unarmed and killed in a no-knock warrant, police raid on an apartment that she occupied. What is the most important fact of the ones that are listed? 1, she was a paramedic. 2, she was suspected to have involvement in narcotic sales and distribution. My bad for the typo. 3, officers submitted untruthful information to obtain the search warrant used to raid the apartment. Again, I apologize for the typo. 4, police have a difficult job. The most important fact of the ones that's listed is 3. The officer submitted untruthful information to obtain the search warrant used to raid the apartment. Once again, the reason why they come out with, oh, she was a paramedic, because we can dispute that. No, she wasn't a paramedic. Yes, she was. We can create media around that to polarize people. A person can be a contrarian around and say, no, she really wasn't a paramedic. She really was a drug dealer, yada, yada, yada. 2, the apartment was raided because she was suspected to have involvement in narcotic sales and distribution. We can create polarizing media around that. However, being a suspect of a crime is not a capital offense. So if somebody gets shot in a police warrant or a police raid, you being a suspect of being involved in something, never been given your due process, right, is not a capital offense. But once again, we can create media around it. I can be a contrarian and say, well, you know what? She deserved to get shot because of what she was involved in. And then we can polarize people and get them emotionally charged up. 4, police have a difficult job. Some people are going to believe police have a difficult job. Some people are going to believe police don't have a difficult job. We can polarize people. I can incite people. I can build an audience around people that believe they have a difficult job. I can build an audience around people that don't believe they have a difficult job, because that's going to be opinion based. 3, the officer submitted untruthful information to obtain the search warrant used to raid the apartment. It's documented. The guy went to a hearing. He lost his job behind it. He tried to appeal it. It stood up. But it's documented that he did that. And I showed this on another video. He went in front of a judge and he presented information that was false to obtain the search warrant to raid her apartment. So now let me explain something to you. If he does not do that, he may not get the warrant. If he don't get the warrant, they don't show up at her apartment. If they don't show up at her apartment, she don't get killed in a no-knock raid. So what caused the whole scenario was the false information. And it's documented. But because we don't want to deal with that, because it's documented, so we can't argue it, what we do is we talk about everything else. Why? Because that's how we keep this thing going. So when you're looking at this from a critical thinking standpoint, I'm trying to get away from everything that's not documented. Because this is documented, it's on paper. Because I can go pull the warrant, I can pull every point that he put in the warrant, I can find the point that he said that, well, I got information from the Postmaster General. Then we can go to the Postmaster General. He can say, well, you know what? I never spoke to this dude, and therefore I never told him what he stated in the warrant. So then what do we know now? You lied about this. It's in paper. That's why we talk about everything else except that. Who she was, what she was involved in, yeah, because we don't want to deal with that document. See? So when you start thinking from a critical thinking standpoint, you eliminate everything else, because you know I have actual information that's factual that I can use to come to a conclusion. Okay, we're going to keep going. Uvalde police officers refuse to engage an active shooter at a school until the active shooter is dead. What is the most important fact of the ones that are listed? 1, the Democrats want our guns. 2, the shooter was talking to an FBI agent online before the shooting. 3, the guns the shooter possessed cost around $5,000. 4, the police contract does not require police to risk their life as a condition of their job. 5, police are under stress because of the liberal media. The most important fact of the ones that are listed is number 4. The police contract does not require police to risk their life as a condition of their job. Right? It doesn't. There is nothing in police policy. There's nothing in active shooter policy that states that a police officer has to risk his life as a condition of their job. It's not like the military where you could be charged with misbehavior in the face of an enemy. That's nowhere in the police contract. So you can talk about everything else except what? The contract. Because if you're in a municipality, the municipality has a contract for policing with the police union, and then the police have policies in which describe how they're supposed to engage in their job. None of those policies are going to describe that they have to, under risk of their own life, engage somebody, right? Until that person is no longer a threat at risk of their life. In the military, you have to do that, right? Or you could be court-martialed and you can also be executed for not doing that. There is nothing like that in the police contract. So therefore, because we don't want to deal with the reality of the actual contract, we talk about every other point, right? The guy, well, how did he get the money to buy the gun? That don't have anything to do with anything. Because once he got the money to buy the gun, or whatever means allow him to get the gun, once he becomes an active shooter, how he got the money to buy the gun is moot because he's an active shooter now, right? The Democrats want our guns. It doesn't matter if, you know what I'm saying, the Whig Party wants your guns, right? Once the guy gets a gun and goes into a school and he's an active shooter, who wants your guns is moot. The shooter was talking to an FBI agent online before the shooting. Not relevant to the point. Police are under stress because of the liberal media, therefore they couldn't do their job properly. Not relevant to the situation that happened, right? The reason why a police officer did not have to engage that shooter until the shooter was dead, because their contract states they don't have to do that. And you can't give them any kind of reprimand, and you can't fire them, because all their union is going to do is pull out the contract in which they're supposed to operate under and say, where does it say in the contract we have to do that? Well, don't say that. Then you can't fire us then. Or we can sue the city for that. So this is what I'm talking about, critical thinking ability. When you have that ability, you don't get caught up in all the other stuff, nor do you want to get caught up in it. Because I don't want to talk about the Democrats and the guns, and the shooter was talking to an FBI agent online, and the guns the shooter, possessed cost $5,000, and the police are under stress because of the liberal media. I want to see the contract. What is the active shooter policy for Uvalde? And where is the police contract and their police policy that states they have to engage an active shooter until the shooter is dead, and they have to risk their life to do it? Because I know what it says in Article 9 of the military code of conduct. If I stated that right, you can go look it up on the internet. It tells you have to engage your enemy. And if you don't, we court-martial you, and we can imprison you, we can discharge you, and we can also execute you. So when you join the military, you need to know that you can't sit out of no fight, because they got you in here to fight. But when you're a police officer, can you sit out of a fight? Yeah, because your contract don't state you have to fight. So you got to understand that. But they're going to go back and forth with this for the next 6 to 12 weeks. Because why? If we pull the contract out, it's going to state what the responsibilities are of the police. And you don't have the right to expect anything out of them. Why? Because they got a contract. So if I got a contract that states you got to do 1, 2, 3, I can't put an expectation on you outside of 1, 2, 3. Why? Because that's what the contract say. And if I want to have a different expectation of you, I have to change the contract, and I might also have to change your compensation based on the negotiation. But we can end this argument real quick by pulling that contract out. But that's why they're not going to do that. Let's go to the next one. Person says Michael Jordan is the best player to ever play power forward for the Toronto Raptors. What is the response? Argue that LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. Tell them that Michael Jordan never played power forward or for the Raptors. Or 3, say nothing. The correct response is 3, say nothing. You see this a lot on the internet. I'm going to say something provocative, but it's wrong on its face, right? But I'm saying it just to emotionally charge people up, to be a contrarian, to get people emotionally riled up, but on its face it's wrong. You can spend time trying to correct the person, or you just can say nothing. So if a person tells me that Michael Jordan is the best player to ever play power forward for the Toronto Raptors, I know what they're trying to do. Why? Michael Jordan never played power forward, and he never played for the Toronto Raptors. So therefore, what I now have to do is try to educate this person just to get them. I'm not going to waste my time doing that. So critical thinking ability makes me understand I just need to go to number 3, let them say whatever they want to say and get back to the money, right? Because I know what game they're playing. That's a real big game on this internet, is just make the most provocative statement I can to get some attention. That's the internet thing to do, right? And everybody does it because that's just the thing to do now. Okay, cool. Let's go to the next one. Person tells you company XYZ is a good investment because it's a tech play, and tech is the future because of all the smart people are in tech. What is the least important element of the company in question? So what is the least important element of the company in question? 1, business model. 2, management team. 3, tech. 4, balance sheet. 5, market that will be served. The least important element is the fact that it's a tech company. That's the least important element. Because a tech company does not have any relevance to whether or not it's a good investment, the company is going to be successful, anything else, right? Is relevant because tech is a subjective word anyway. Okay? That's subjective. So you got to understand is that somebody promoting to you, and we've seen a lot of this over the past 2 years, that these companies are going to be home runs because it's tech. And they labeled everything as a tech company. Even WeWork, which is a real estate play, was labeled as a tech company because people have been programmed to believe if it's tech, it's for smart people, it's futuristic, it means it's going to be successful. Nobody goes into the business model. How do they actually make money? The management team, who are the people inside this particular deal? What is their experience? What have they been doing with their life? What makes them qualified to run this company? The balance sheet, what are the financials of the particular company? 5, what is the market that's going to be served? Who are they going after to do business with? All of those are more important than tech. Because let me explain something to you. The people that do cotton balls, right, that provide cotton balls to the United States military, that is a multi-million-dollar contract, right? The people that provide socks to the United States military, that's a multi-million-dollar contract. The people that provide that put soap in the retail store, that's a multi-billion-dollar contract. There's no computers, no tech. That may be involved in the manufacturing of it, but the actual business is not a tech play. These are multi-billion-dollar categories. So this concept that everything got to be tech to be successful is really not valid because the majority of things that you involved in on a regular basis aren't this heavy tech play, right? They're very boring, old school, old automated type businesses. And I'm talking about old school automation. I'm not talking about automation to where you got robots doing stuff. I'm talking about like assembly line type stuff. That's the majority of stuff that you utilize today. And so that's what I want people to understand. When you look at it from a critical thinking standpoint, it changes how you see a particular company. Let's go into the next one. And then we're going to get up on out of here. So NBA player makes a comment on the president of the United States. This happened a few years ago. What is the most important fact of the ones that are listed? Player has a right to their opinion as a taxpayer. I don't like their opinion. NBA players pay 37% federal tax rate. The most important fact of the ones that are listed is number 1. Player has a right to their opinion as a taxpayer. It also could be number 3, but it's definitely not number 2. But if we want to create controversy, we want to polarize people, yada, yada, yada. We talk about what this player said he needs to just shut up and play basketball or shut up and dribble the ball. People agree with it because I don't like what the guy said. The fact that he got a right to his opinion as a taxpayer is null and void. The fact that he pays more taxes than the average American is also null and void because as a person that pays more taxes, he should have a comment on the president of the United States. He's paying more federal taxes than most people. Guys getting taxed at 37%. But because we're not operating from a critical thinking ability, because most of the country doesn't think this way, I can polarize people, build my audience talking about, well, look at what this NBA player said. Right? So you got to really understand is that this is what is holding a lot of people from being successful in the markets, is because they're coming in not understanding how to think on this level. Don't mean every decision you make is going to be right. Doesn't mean your perspective always is going to be right. But you don't get caught into a lot of this ancillary stuff, right, with these companies. Because their job is to give you a narrative around the company and get you to buy into it. It's not your job to believe it. It's their job to try to sell it. Don't make it your job to believe it. And when you don't believe it all the time, you can identify stuff like Carvana. You can identify things like Affirm. You can identify things like I talked about maybe 2 years ago, GSX. You can identify these scenarios because 2 years ago, everybody was telling us China was the best place to invest. Well, did we ever take into consideration the Chinese government? I got on this YouTube and I showed you the Constitution of the Communist Party of China. I showed you the Constitution of China. Neither one of those constitutions to me promote free commerce, capitalism, business. So why everybody bought into this is a great place to invest, I don't know, right? Because to me, there was no real critical thinking going on there. Do I have some exposure to China? Very little. I have some, but I never saw it as this great place to invest. Why? Because I have their documents. And I believe the Communist Party of China when they say that this is a Marxist-Leninist, right, government, which means that I don't care what they do, they're telling you this is what we're standing on. Now, they may let you get away with making money for 5 to 10 years. And then one day they may come in and say, you know what, it's over with. We're going to go to what we originally are trying to do. So that's what people got to understand. When you're in these markets, really start looking at things from a critical thinking ability to the best of your ability. And if you continue to kind of work on that over and over again, it can put you in a position to be successful and put you in a position to where you're not always waiting for somebody else to tell you something is a good investment. I don't listen to analysts. I don't listen to not one of them because I know how that game works, right? I'll listen to Katrina Alexander before I listen to an analyst. Why? Because they're motivated by different things. I know how the analyst game works when it comes to a company. And you'll stop depending on these people to try to give you an analysis of what's going on in the world. You understand how to find the information that's going to help you come to a conclusion, and you come to your conclusion, and then you just evaluate it. And either you're going to be right or you're going to be wrong, right? But many people are struggling in this market is because they haven't really been taught to apply any kind of critical thinking to their trading. And they think somebody else is going to tell them the answer. Well, the question you want to ask yourself is, why is that person incentivized to give you an answer that's going to help you become successful? How does that work? Are you paying them to do that? Or do you think they just going to do it just because? And you really got to kind of understand these things. And then when these scenarios happen in the world, it's going to make it easier for you to cut straight through it and understand what's actually going on. And that ability will allow you to become a lot more successful. It's not the only ability that you need, but it's one of the abilities that you need. Another one of the abilities you need is you need psychological control over yourself. But most people, if you tell them drive from point A to point B and just look at the road, and then during that drive, we throw stuff at them to distract them, they'll get distracted, even though we told them drive from point A to point B and just look at the road. Don't look at nothing else. Because why? They want to get distracted. And you really got to kind of understand that.
Here is a testimonial for the highest paid part-time job in the world from Katrina Alexander.
So I'm approaching 3 years in this academy. All of my accounts have increased trading, investments, business, and personal accounts. This academy can produce results in all areas of your life when you do the work. Yes, you have to work on your psychology and mindset to get the results.